After an off-season of speculation, there is awesome clarity as the Broncos and Seahawks have agreed to terms on a deal to send Russell Wilson to Denver. We'll look at what that will mean for head coach Nathaniel Hackett's plans on offense, who might be joining Wilson in the coming free agency period, and we'll bring on our resident draft expert in Benjamin Allbright to find out what April's draft strategy will look like. Welcome into Broncos Weekend, everybody. I am Matt Boyer alongside the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater. Steve, how are we feeling? What a week, my friend.
Yes, we're hyped, we're super hyped.
Steve, let's review the agreed upon terms to the deal. Remember, the agreement in principle between the Denver Broncos and the Seahawks doesn't become official until Wednesday at 2 p.m. when the league year begins, but Broncos will receive quarterback Russell Wilson and a 2022 fourth-round pick in exchange for quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, defensive end Shelby Harris, and a bevy of picks, 2 first-round picks, 2 seconds, and a 5th. Wilson still has 2 years remaining on his current contract, Steve. Expires in 2024. Your reaction, Steve, though, to the news? I mean, obviously you're excited. I see you pumped up, you're hyped. But what was your reaction to the news and what the Broncos had to give up to get Russell Wilson?
Yeah, well, I really couldn't believe it. Alexis Perry came out of her office and said, "Hey, Steve, did you see the news about Russell Wilson?" I'm like, "Well, no, what happened?" And she looked down at her phone, and I'm like, spit it out, spit it out. I'm thinking he got traded, he signed back with the Seahawks, he retired. I didn't know what she was going to say. She said, "We made a trade for Russell Wilson." And man, oh man, we made some noise downstairs. You may have heard us up here.
Yeah.
Yes, we're back. You know, we were super hyped about it. And a lot of people I know, like you said, they may think that it's too much to give up. It's definitely not too much. If you don't have your quarterback, I don't think you really can be taken seriously as a contender. Even though we've had great defenses, without the quarterback, it's difficult to get to that next level.
Denver won't pick in the NFL draft this year until pick number 64 if the board remains the same, Steve. But again, if Denver returns to the playoffs and are in the chase for the AFC West, I don't think anybody's going to really care. In addition to that, though, George Payton last year, after pick number 64, selected guys like Baron Browning, Quinn Miners, Caden Stearns, Jonathan Cooper. So he's demonstrated that he can find depth and value in the draft. So
and all guys contributed.
And I'm not worried about his ability to find picks deep into the draft. But let's turn our attention to Wilson now. Okay, Wilson has been about as consistent as they come, Steve. For his career, he's a 9-time Pro Bowler. He finished 6-8 last year, despite suffering a fracture and a tendon and some tendon damage in the middle finger on his throwing hand. Played well to finish the year, but Steve, what do you like about his skill set? This guy obviously has the goods.
Yes. Well, first off, he has the 3 traits that Coach Nathaniel Hackett said are extremely important. Number 1, toughness. To be able to come back from that finger injury as quickly as he came back, that was amazing to me. He has the accuracy. He has the leadership. He has everything that you want in the prototypical NFL pro quarterback, and he's smart. He gets his guys fired up. You see the videos and hear him pumping the guys up on defense, getting the offensive line pumped up. He's a true leader, a smart guy that can throw accurate footballs. And man, Broncos country is super excited about this. I'm excited. You're excited.
Oh yeah,
we're all excited.
If you were still playing today, preparing for a guy like this, does he give you headaches middle of the week?
Oh, definitely, because many times when you think you have him, you don't. And he's a guy that he's not one-dimensional. He's not just going to throw the short passes. He's not just going to throw the deep passes. He's going to pep you with a little bit of everything. And he's very accurate at throwing the deep ball. And he's not afraid to take those shots when they're there. So, we are really fortunate to have Russell Wilson here. Welcome to Denver, Russell Wilson.
I'm excited to see what Nathaniel Hackett does with Russell Wilson, Steve. I think that Hackett's fluency in a bunch of different systems, like you mentioned, he does so many different things well. I think the fact that he has the ability to put him in a bunch of different positions, utilize him in a bunch of different ways. His pre-snap reads are great. He does a great job of commanding the line of scrimmage. So there's a lot of potential there for Russell Wilson, like you just mentioned. A lot of potential for our young offensive weapons, too. Guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, your guy Albert O, Javonte Williams. What does this mean now for the next step in their career, Steve, these young offensive weapons for the Broncos?
Well, to get a quarterback who they've watched over the years, I'm sure when they were in high school and college, they saw Russell Wilson doing great things with the Seattle Seahawks. And then for him to now be on their team, they'll already respect him and trust his judgment, and they'll want to play better for him. They're going to prepare better for him. And it's going to have a great effect on everyone in the organization, I think.
I'm very intrigued to see what this does for Javonte Williams, because Javonte Williams has an incredibly high football IQ for a player of his age right now. I think that you pair him with a guy like Wilson, who has also a very high IQ, a little bit like the way Peyton Manning and C.J. Anderson worked off each other back in that 2013 to 2015 range. Anderson was incredibly bright, knew the playbook almost as well as Peyton Manning did. I think that Williams' growth this year, possibly Pro Bowl? Is that it? Could that be in the cards for Javonte?
Oh, I think it's definitely in the cards for Javonte Williams. He's a heck of a running back. Like you said, super smart, tough. Has great hands out of the backfield, and he's a great blocker as well. He's just a complete back, and we know how he runs the ball, how difficult he is to bring down. So, having a quarterback that's an elite quarterback will do nothing but up his game as well.
Let's talk next steps now, Steve. Free agency and the legal tampering period. Love that term, legal tampering, starts on Monday. How does this type of move, or how does this move in particular, change who the Broncos might be able to recruit?
Well, I think it opens up the door for a lot of veteran players who may not have even considered coming to Denver previously, because now we have a quarterback who is an elite quarterback, along with all the other talent that we have on this offensive side of the ball. Now I think everyone believes that we can win, not just us on the inside, but people on the outside. They see, man, they got a legit quarterback. They have weapons at the receiver position, at the running back position. They got great coaches that are going to come in here and do a great job. I want to go to Denver. I want to be a part of that.
Much like Peyton Manning did for the likes of DeMarcus Ware, T.J. Ward, Aqib Talib. Maybe there's a little bit of that here in this upcoming free agency period. And speaking of the free agency period, Steve, when we come back on Broncos Weekend, we will take a look at some of the names that the Broncos might be eyeing in this upcoming free agency period. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Okay, Steve, we mentioned the legal tampering period about to begin for free agency on Monday at 10 a.m. Mountain. Teams can contact agents, try and figure out if these upcoming free agents are interested in coming to Denver. So I want to take a look at some of these names, because the position groups, due to the agreed-upon Russell Wilson trade, changed a little bit for the Broncos in the past week. Now they're going to be looking at positions like tight end, defensive end, inside linebacker. And I want to start with the tight end group first with you. In this free agency crop, any names that stand out to you as far as tight ends?
Well, one guy, New York Giants tight end, Evan Ingram. He's almost more of a receiver, but he's had some drops in the past, and I credit some to him, but also some to the passes not being as accurate as they should have been. He's a dynamic player after he catches the ball, 4.42 40. 40-yard dash at the combine, super talented wide receiver. I think in the right place, he can prosper.
The guy I want to spotlight, Steve, is a Green Bay Packer. Not talking about Aaron Rodgers, who I know took a lot of a lot of the headlines in the past couple of months for Broncos fans. I'm talking about Robert Tonyan. He's a guy coming off an ACL injury, Steve. And ACL injuries with tight ends, it can get a little tricky. So if the health checks out, this is a guy who Nathaniel Hackett was his offensive coordinator in Green Bay. Justin Outen, the Broncos' new OC, was his position coach. And in that offense, in 2020, a full season of health, had 11 touchdowns, Steve. A huge red zone target. Big 6'5", can go up and get the football. I think much in the same way that Bryce Callahan was kind of a translator for the defensive backs here with Vic Fangio's system in 2019, I think Tonyan can do that for Nathaniel Hackett's system and Justin Outen, what they want to do on offense. I think he can communicate to the guys, relay that message, be a conduit, and be a big red zone target. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's going to be important, that there be some other voices in there besides the coaches that knows what the coaches are talking about, that can relay that in player terms as well. So, I like it.
All right. Let's switch to defense now, because Shelby Harris, defensive end going to Seattle. Broncos need some leadership. They need a veteran presence, Steve, on defense rather. Who do you got? Who is a defensive guy in this free agent class that might be able to contribute to the Broncos?
Come on now. Denver South's own Calais Campbell.
There we go.
6'6", 300 pounds, just the beast of a man. And you meet him in the room, his presence is so amazing. And you see him on the football field, not many people can block him. And the thing that I like about him is whenever he goes to a team, he plays a good majority of the snaps. It's not like he's on the field and then every couple of plays he wants to be on the sideline. He's in the game. I think the most he's played is 88% of the snaps in the season. And obviously, as he's gotten up there in age, this is going to be his 15th season. That's diminished a little bit, but he's still up there pretty high. And I love to see us get Calais Campbell. He'll be great for our young defensive linemen and for getting pressure on quarterbacks.
A lot of production. He is a little bit older, but I like the pick, Steve. I like the pick. The guy I'm going to talk about, a Detroit native. Closer to where I'm from now, okay? William Golston out of Tampa Bay. Okay. Now, full disclosure, I covered Golston in high school, so I have a bit of a soft spot for him, okay? I don't know if that showcases my age or his, but we'll just leave it at that. Golston is 6'6", 281, can get into the passing lanes much in the same way that Shelby Harris did. He's going into his 10th season, already won a ring. This might be kind of the downslope of his career, so to speak, kind of looking for that next step, wanting to kind of cement himself as a leader on a team. This could be the place for him.
I like it. He's just going into his 10th year. I know Calais Campbell's going into his 15th year.
Some veteran guys. That's okay.
Yeah. I like both of those.
Okay, all right. Last one we're going to cover. Now, we're going to go to inside linebacker. And Steve, Josie Jewell, Alexander Johnson, Kenny Young all received praise from George Paton in previous weeks. Out of those guys, I know you love them all, but who stands out to you that could maybe come back, re-sign, and make an impact?
Well, to be honest with you, just from watching the guys over the last couple of years, I love Alexander Johnson. I love his heart. I love his hustle to the ball. And we talked about this when looking at film. Mm-hmm. When the ball carrier is carrying the ball, I want to see 11 guys flying to the ball. And he's always been one of those 11 guys that's flying to the ball until the whistle's blown, and he makes something happen when he gets there. Now, I know his pass coverage may not have been as good, not getting as much depth in his own coverage than that. But still, he's a football player, and he can be coached up to do those things correctly. And I think he can be a great player here in the future. I don't think he reached his full potential these last 3-4 years here, but I think he can get there.
The Bronco fans, Steve, Broncos country, they want to see the Dino celebration again, right? I know
yes, they do. I agree.
He brings the energy.
Yes.
He brings the enthusiasm. They want to see it back out there. So I don't think it's going to take too much convincing of Broncos country if the Broncos do decide to bring back Alexander Johnson. A name that I want to get to right now, though, a Patriot, a former Miami Dolphin, Kyle Van Noy. I'm not sure this is a good scheme fit, Steve. The Belichick defense, as you know, it's a little different than a lot of other schemes around the NFL, but he offers you a big-time veteran. He's 30 years old. He's played for some bright defensive-minded coaches. We just mentioned Belichick and also Brian Flores. You play inside and outside. He's very versatile, but at 30 years old, does he give you more than a guy like Kenny Young, who's 4 years younger and was very productive for the Broncos? I feel like I'm talking myself out of my own pick here, but when you think about veteran presence, could Van Noy be a guy?
Yeah, I mean, he's a two-time Super Bowl champ. He's been there. He knows what winning looks like. I'm sure he has that winning mentality, so I think he would be good for the locker room as well. But hey, I'm glad we're not GMs, right? We don't have to do that. We can just talk about it. They got the tough work.
That's certainly true. When we come back on Broncos Weekend, we are going to be talking free agency, draft, and Russell Wilson with our friend Benjamin Allbright from Broncos Country tonight. He's stopping by, and that is next. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Time now to bring in a man who turns heads whenever he walks into a room, not only because of his wardrobe, but also because of his football knowledge. I'm talking, of course, about KOA and Bronco Country's tonight's own Benjamin Allbright. Ben, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I thought you were describing Steve Atwater for a minute.
Oh, that's all you, man. It's all you. Got the gold suit, got the pink suit, got all kinds of suits.
I just wore I got the blue memo today.
There we go.
All wearing blue, right? All right. Combine review was supposed to be the topic for us this week. something happened in between the combine and today, and that, of course, is the agreed-to deal for Russell Wilson. When did you know a deal for the Seahawks quarterback was in the works?
I knew that they were potentially talking about that back at the Senior Bowl about, I guess, 3.5 weeks ago, give or take. We didn't know that they had discussed contract parameters and, trade parameters and all that kind of stuff. That crept up on me. I knew that he was plan B behind Aaron Rodgers, but we didn't know this was going to accelerate this fast. I mean, John Schneider had no reason to do that this fast. Seattle had the most leverage waiting for it up till draft day and kind of trying to sweating it out. So that was a surprise. Caught me by surprise when we got the call about, I think about 40 minutes before it broke. And for me, I was on cloud nine, sitting there resisting every urge not to text everybody I know that Russell Wilson was coming.
Now, why do you think he was encouraged to go ahead and make the move as soon as they did?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It still perplexes me, but I'm thankful they did. I feel like we didn't have to pay as much as we could have because Seattle didn't milk and draw this process out. They made it quick. So kudos to George Paton for being decisive and aggressive. I saw that guy Friday. I saw George Paton Friday before the trade. I saw him, sat down with us for 20 minutes, poker face. I'm never playing poker against that guy, ever.
How does this change now? Obviously, you see the emotion, the enthusiasm across the fan base, but across the league, how does this change the perception of the Broncos with agents and other teams and just kind of the NFL at large?
Well, I think there has been a bit of a culture shift with moving from John Elway to George Paton, and some of that has to do with the style in which they helm the team. But I think Russ Wilson gives you a real credibility. You know, the Broncos organization has a real credibility because you've got the quarterback in place now, and you're willing to take big swings for that type of guy. I think George Paton played it perfectly. He was patient. He didn't swing at pitches he didn't need to swing at, but he went for the swings that he did. They went after Aaron Rodgers. They went after Russ Wilson. Those are franchise-changing quarterbacks. And he got a lot of guff last year for not taking one in the draft, but if you don't believe in one at that point, don't do it. So keep the bat on your shoulder. He takes the big cut, hits the home run with Russell Wilson, and now everybody thinks the Broncos are a playoff and probably Super Bowl contender.
And does that help for other free agents, especially veteran free agents who are getting up there in years who haven't seen the Super Bowl?
I think so. I think pursuit of the ring is a real thing. You know, I think that they have the potential to get some of these guys on discounted type deals, similar to the way Peyton Manning brought in or helped to bring in guys during his run. I don't know if there's going to be as much of that in this go round, but there's certainly a credibility, and also in keeping your own guys. You know, talented guys may want to leave to pursue that somewhere else if they don't believe in what you're building.
Yeah.
Based on that, though, do you think now that the Broncos have invested so much in Russell Wilson, right tackle maybe is a little elevated more so than it was in previous weeks? Where do you think George Paton's eye will go position-wise here in this free agency period?
I think there are three major concerns right now. I know most people go to inside linebacker, but I believe the Broncos are going to play more dime defense this year, a more 6 DB type defense with one linebacker. You go back and look at the Rams tape. They were the #1 team in dime last year, and of course the Giro Evero and Marcus Dixon do come from that. I think the real glaring issue is the edge rush. I mean, you got Bradley Chubb on one side, a big question mark on the other. So I think they're going to look at that. I think they'll look at free agency and the draft to try to fill that. Right tackle, you already mentioned. Bobby Massey could come back. He's staying here in Colorado. He could come back. Dennis Kelly, a guy they looked at last year, eventually signed with the Packers. Should know this offensive scheme. Keep your eye on that one as well. And then corner depth. I mean, you've got Darby and you've got Surtain, and of course you've got Ojimudi and Bassey, but you probably need another corner or two in there. So I think those are the three priorities.
You don't think interior defensive line?
Well, I think that will be. You need to replace Shelby. I think Sebastian Joseph Day would be somebody to keep your eye on. Played on the Rams defensive line, free agent. He's got the right body type. So,
I think if you're Nathaniel Hackett, this first month or so of being the Broncos head coach probably couldn't have gone any better. Now you've got to think about what this means, the skill set that he has for his offensive scheme. Hackett's demonstrated in previous stops he can dictate his offense to his quarterback's skills. How do you think the addition of Russell Wilson would impact what he's planning here for 2022?
Well, it certainly gives you a greater toolkit to work with, right? You don't have to take pages out of the playbook if you've got a quarterback that can do everything. So I like to go back and look at what he did with Blake Bortles, because Bortles was a mobile guy with a big arm. Now, Bortles is not obviously on Russell Wilson's caliber or same planet, honestly, in terms of skill set, but he's got some similar tools, and to kind of see the creative things that he did back then. Now, Nathaniel was still running a lot more K-gun back then. Now they're going to do a lot more outside zone, boot action off zone. So going back and looking at the Packers tape over the last 3 years and looking at the Bortles tape, I think they're going to have some fun things. I know he was excited at the combine. I mean, just standing next to the guy, I felt like I drank a Red Bull. So
this upcoming draft for the Broncos, it's changed. The approach has changed a lot in the last 7 days. You were at the combine. You had a chance to talk with George Paton and Nathaniel Hackett. I'm sure you learned a lot, but now how much does the approach change with the Broncos' first pick not really coming until, I think, 64?
Yeah, 64, but they do have 5 picks in the top 115, so it's not like they don't have picks anymore after they traded those away. I think you're just looking and keeping an eye on the talent. And if you look at the draft class that the Broncos had last year, they were able to find talent well into the draft. Quinn Meinerz, Caden Stearns, Jonathan Cooper, those guys came well into the draft. And so I trust George Paton's eye. I trust what they're able to do in identifying that talent finding. You may not get the more recognizable names out of the top 30, but you're still going to get good players in that middle round. And this is a deep draft for tackles and edge rushers, 2 things we talked about the Broncos needing.
Yeah, I agree with that. George Paton has a great eye for talent. What's your take on if the Broncos will be looking for another quarterback or not?
I suspect they could. I think that they could get a day 3 quarterback in here. One guy I've had my eye on, Caleb Elby. I think you may be familiar with him a little bit, Steve. Our tight ends coach was his offensive coordinator back at Western Michigan a couple of years ago, and I think Caleb Elby has a good chance of winding up being a Denver Bronco.
Benjamin Albright, you always deliver. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can the folks find you on KOA and the like?
That's right, KOA, Broncos Country Tonight, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Allbright.
There we go.
That's going to do it for us today on Broncos Weekend. Special thanks to Benjamin Albright and the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater. I'm Matt Boyer. So long, Broncos Country. We will see you next time.